I have to tell you that I am overwhelmed at so many of you being here on the coldest day of the year and also on a holiday weekend, and I want to thank you very much. I think we're okay. Are we okay? Yeah, great. Just as a wrap-up, we had the last two sessions were on legal. Remember, make sure your legal documents are in order. If they're not, do something about it. It's really, really important. Now, coming up on today's show, not only do you need legal documents, but this is the day that you're all going to get organized. Very important to be organized because there are many, many documents and all sorts of things, checkbooks and whatever, that you need to be able to either write down or put somewhere to not to help you, but also help your loved ones when and if something does happen to you. So Bob Vincent is going to tell you all about that today. Oh, I forgot to tell Nancy Ursi, my very good friend, always says, Carol, you never identify yourself. I'm Carol Bortman. That's it. So the rest of us, we're doing fine. Bob is going to talk. He has a fabulous handout. So just remember that you can always look at this on 919. And many of you have used this opportunity to go back and to refresh your mind slowly and in your own time of what's important on that channel as you review things, because we don't want you to miss any conversation by being so busy writing down things. So you know how you learn the best. And so just know that you can keep reviewing this program anytime you want on channel 919. So are we ready? Yes. Bob Vincent.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Welcome. It's great to see you. As you may have heard, we're experiencing a heating failure in some parts of the campus. We're part of that part. So I would advise you to keep warm by applauding frequently and snuggling. Fair enough? All right. We're here today to talk about something that we all try to avoid, and we shouldn't. And if we do, it's at our own peril. Files, records, availability, all sorts of information. I am thankful to three people for helping me get my records somewhat in order. The first is Manny Kay. He is a fellow resident. I served with him some years ago on the RAC, the Resident Advisory Council, and he was liaison to the folks over in continuing care. And he noticed that they needed help with their records. So we did research and put together a packet for them on how to get their records going and how their family can assist as well. The second person who helped me is my son, Bob. He is a retired Navy judge. His records are frightening. They are alphabetized, categorized, every eyes that you could ever imagine. Nothing out of date, everything in order, and all in one place. I find that intimidating. My system is somewhat different. I call it, if you will. The third person is my wife, Fidela. We may celebrate our 60th wedding anniversary at the end of the month. I say may, you'll soon find out why. From the time we were first married, she was an incentivizer, not a nag. I wouldn't dare call her a nag. I couldn't live with the consequence of that. But she would encourage me to get the records in order. And she'd say sweet, simple things like, Don't you dare leave me with incomplete and messed up records. I interpret that as follows. She loves me and she wants me around. And then recently, she really got my attention when she said, if you don't get those records in order, I'm going to tell lies at your memorial service. And there she is, right there. She said that. On that note, I want to introduce to you the Bob Vincent Good Enough filing system. Gentlemen, may we have the screen? Shortly, when things are not currently available. It should be available to you because it's a good review, and it has to be available, readily available, to your personal representative should you die or, for example, move over to continuing care. I do advise that when you make a copy for yourself, make a copy for your personal representative. And I do advise one personal representative. Now, I don't want to get involved in your families, but if you have two or more, they may not agree with one another. Be advised. So I advise one personal representative. I also advise, and I'm not an attorney, by the way, I do advise that you don't store them in a bank vault because there may be difficulties for someone getting access to it in a timely fashion. So I look at a box or a file drawer. My files started out back in the 1950s. I was then a copy boy at the old Boston Record American. And we had an expanded file folder made of cardboard. And when you opened it up, I think it had 12 compartments. I liberated one of those and took it home. That began my file system. I still have it. And I was 15 at the time when I acquired that. Who is this person, your personal representative? You know who it is, but other people who may need to know that may not know who it is. So I advise a sheet of paper in that file system that identifies your personal representative. Name, address, email address, blah, blah, blah. Fair enough? Now, your vital statistics. On campus, I am known as Bob Vincent, for better or for worse. But if I tried to sign a legal document, Bob Vincent, it would bounce. So I need people to know who I really am in the event that there has to be a legal document. So another page in your file should have your vital statistics. What is your real name, your legal name, date of birth, place, marital status, if there's divorce documentation, legal stuff, have it there, marriage certificate, birth certificate, and so on and so forth. Now that should be pretty easy for you to acquire, but I'll bet in many cases that stuff is spread all over the apartment. Please, get it together. Get your act together, as we say in the trade. Continuing, your Social Security number, please don't divulge it to others unless you have to. Your Medicare number, please remember that you got a new one last year. Make sure it's in your record. Driver's license information, employment information, and in some cases, retirement data. What was the date that you retired? You can be asked that question, and you probably should know it. I don't know mine, but I have a record that will tell me that. You will need your most recent W-2 tax records. Your personal representative will need that, because one of their responsibilities is to file income tax for you in the year that you die. What else? Supplemental medical insurance information as well, in addition to Medicare. Something you don't want to hear, but you have to. If you are a single resident and you die, within 30 minutes the lock on your door will be changed by security. No one is getting in unless they have very specific identification. Now, the formal term for a form that was recently instituted at Brooksby late last year, is called, now let me see, Authorization for Entry to Living Unit. You pick one of those up at the front desk in each of the main buildings. You are allowed to put the names of 2 people on that list, and each of them will be allowed entrance to the apartment. Absent that, we also are using our old fallback position, and let's see if I can see it from here. A letter of administration or a similar document from the state probate court establishing that person as an executor of your estate or a trust agreement designee. In addition to that, I'm going to advise very strongly that you provide your personal representative with 1 copy each of what we call the Independent Living Moving Out Handbook. You've passed, you're a single resident, and now your personal representative has to deal with the results of that. It is all explained in that document, Independent Living Moving Out Handbook. There's a comparable handbook in the event that you move over to continuing care. Go to the front desk or go to your representatives, resident services coordinator. Each of you has a resident services coordinator. And if you don't know her, please get to meet her. She's a font of information that's valuable to you. And there are their names. Kara is over in the town center area. Marina is over in that area as well, and Lindsay is over on this side of campus. Continuing in final arrangements, you will need to be in touch with our pastoral ministries. Reverend Chad and his absolutely fabulous crew of religious representatives here. And the kinds of things that you will want to be talking about, or your representative will have to be talking about: funeral arrangements, memorial services, counseling services, and so forth. If you are a federal retiree, you will be wanting to talk to the Office of Personnel Management in the government. That's the email address, contact information. And please find out who they have to contact if your former employer has anything to offer you or your family in terms of retirement or other documentation or benefits. Pet care. In the event of your disability or death, someone has to be responsible for your pet. Security is not going to walk your dog. They're not going to go in and feed your cat. You have to go back to those personal representatives that I had up on the screen a moment ago and fill out a form and keep it up to date. Now, many of us filled out a form years ago, And the person's name that we put down died 3 years ago. That does not do your cat or dog the least bit of good. It has to be current. And those are filed in the office of that personal representative. The kind of information they're looking for: the date of birth of the animal, where is the animal's medical records, name and age, breed, sex, diet, exercise schedule. One thing I left off: religion. The cat's religion. No, you're laughing. And you shouldn't. When you talk about religion, you shouldn't laugh. I was telling a story at dinner one night over in Windsor, and I mentioned that Molly is a now 4-year-old rescue cat from Georgia. She does not say meow. She says meow. And she really does. She really does. And she has a very strange habit of taking 1 or 2 or even 3 artificial mice that she plays with over to her water dish and puts them in her water dish. And she takes them and puts them out next to the dish to dry. I no sooner had finished this story when a gentleman at an adjacent table came over and said, "Sir, your cat is a Southern Baptist." True story. In addition, does your cat or dog or whatever have allergies? Who has the key to the apartment? Now I don't know how to solve that problem. Remember I said they changed the locks? Are you one of the people that can get into that apartment? That's up to you to find out. What about emergency boarding details? What about the disposition of the pet upon the death of the pet? Clearly you must, or someone must, contact the emergency caretaker immediately and provide veterinarian information as well. This is fun. This is frighteningly complex, I'm afraid. All the electronic devices that we have been accruing over the years. Some people have iPhones. Some people have flip phones. Some people have all kinds of phones. And then they dispose of them because they upgrade. But those phones are loaded with information about you, and they're stuck in a drawer. Now, some of you, when you upgrade, will take that old phone to the dealer and have the information downloaded into the new form and delete all of the information in that phone, and that's cool. You now have a naked phone. They're not worth much, so people just kind of leave them there, but other people take them home and put them in the drawer. And if they haven't downloaded the information, it's still in there, so be careful. Who is your internet provider? You may know, but does your personal representative? Or who is providing internet, telephone, all that kind of information? That should be somewhere in your files. How about the passcodes? We used to say passwords. I strongly urge you not to have a word as a passcode, but symbols, numbers, and letters, uppercase and not. I know it sounds complex. There's ways to do it. Make it as difficult as possible for the bad folks to get into your files. So we call them passcodes. All kinds of IDs. How about the specifications of your various equipment? What's their memory capacity? People will ask you that. So it should be specified. When you buy it, you're provided that information. It should be made part of your files. Continuing with the electronics, I have a firm over in Ipswich that I use for our equipment. They do a very good job. I know we have an in-house capability, and I love the guys that do it. They do a very good job, but it's limited. If you want to scrub the bad stuff out of your computer, it is literally an all-day operation with over 250 separate pieces of software that scrubs your computer clean. Very few people have that ability to do that. I'm not going to pick on any commercial enterprise, but I found them totally unsatisfactory to do a full scrub. Some of the other equipment that you may not be aware of, at least immediately. Some people have an external hard drive backup. I have one. That should be made available because that has all the information that's ever been in your computer now on a separate device. How about thumb drives? What's on the thumb drives? Do you know what a thumb drive is? It's a very tiny device that you plug in your computer and you tell the computer, these files, and you specify what they are, I want you to transfer them to this little thumb drive. And it's about the size of a stub pencil. Your thumb drive, about the size of a thumb. That's invaluable, and they can hold massive amounts of data. I have several of them. On your car, you have a Department of Motor Vehicle Easy Pass transponder, perhaps. The one that lets you go through the tolls automatically. You don't own that. The Commonwealth does. And you have some money in there. Not much, but, it automatically updates from time to time. It's chump change, I agree, but it's there. It's yours. Why leave it with the Commonwealth? A medical transponder, the little device that we wear on our wrist or around our neck, that's another device that has to be turned into security. I have in my car an old-fashioned Garmin GPS, how to find my way around the world. I never use it because I have a much better one on my iPhone, quite frankly. What else do we have? I have a Fitbit Charge, right there. And boy, does that contain information about me. And it's historic, and it goes back years in a computer file. So much for that. I sincerely hope that those of you who are computer literate to one degree or another will use medical portals. Those are Leahy, Mass General, and right here at Brooksby, an electronic opportunity for you to store your files, communicate with your physicians, be reminded of appointments, read your lab results online, quickly and confidentially. Please, if you can, invoke the medical portals. There's a new one called My Erickson that came in late last year. It has all kinds of interesting things in it. How many meals do you have left this month? It's up to date. You don't have to ask anyone. It just tells you right there. We now have an electronic telephone directory of every single person in Erickson, in our facility here. And you can add additional information. What are your interests, in addition to your telephone number and your apartment number, but what are your interests, hobbies, and so on and so forth, if you want people to know a little bit more about you. All kinds of information regarding food, schedules, you name it. My Erickson. And the way you do it, in order to acquire that, you go down to the front office here in the lobby, and you ask Karen, the administrative assistant for the front office, for a code that will let you get My Erickson on your computer. Do you have any audio recording devices? I occasionally talk into a recording device to maintain a history of, if anyone's ever interested, in what Fidel and I have done with our lives. And I will tell you that my son did something for us for an event several years ago. He hired a professional who came to the house 12 times with recording equipment and assisted us in describing our lives. We were prompted, we were given little scripts and so on and so forth. Not our history, not our ancestry, no one cares about them, just Fidela and Bob. And he did that so that his grandchildren will know us, because we'll be gone by then. And he wants them to know us. I find that fascinating because neither one of my grandchildren is married at the moment. But my son plans ahead. I told you that before. He really does. So there's a lot of information in there. This is what's important. Maintain a current list of the user identifications and the passcodes, and protect them. Because if someone acquires them and you don't want them to have it, they can cause you grief on your computers. And it should be updated. Financial records. This is not my forte. That's why I married Fidela. One of the reasons. I was a student, and I was working full-time. I had never seen a check. I had never written a check until I got married. And I don't think I've written a dozen in my life, quite frankly. Fidela handles the paperwork, much to her chagrin, because I am reluctant to learn. Why do I need another job? So, this is largely Fidela prompting me. Recurring bill payment schedules and related details. Those of you who pay bills know exactly what that means. I have a nodding acquaintance to it. Recurring bills. The Brooksby Village monthly bill. I'm going to give Mike Francis a plug here, especially his administrative assistant, Irene. She will love you for the rest of your life if you will electronically pay your monthly bill. It will save her time, you time, and all of us money. Save us money by electronically paying the bill. It's not difficult, and you'll be pleased once you do it. Somewhere there has to be in your files a record of your bank account numbers. And who do you contact? How do you find the bank? What's their web address? What's their telephone number? If you belong to a credit union, you need the same kind of information. Then you have to have checking account information. And don't forget magazine and newspaper subscriptions, because they will continue after you've departed, and someone has to undo that. Do you have long-term care insurance? Not many people do, quite frankly. But if you do, how fortunate you are. But I really strongly recommend that you review your policy and what are the benefits that are available to you with your long-term care. Life insurance policy information, of course. This is a misnomer. We call it the rental insurance information. We are not renting our apartments at Brooksby Village. We don't own them, we don't rent them. We have a residence in care agreement to live here, but we call it rental insurance. Please make sure that information is readily available. Should you stop up the sink and leave the water running, and it splashes out of the sink and downstairs and all. You don't want to hear that. Automobile information and funeral expenses insurance information. I did not know until recently you can buy insurance to pay for your funeral expenses. Who is your internet provider? That should be part of your records. Who provides your television service? Who provides your telephone provider? For most people, that's kind of easy. That's kind of a Comcast thing. But then you have an iPhone, and now you have another provider, and you need information. In cell phone service, same thing. In your cell phone, let's say with Fidela and I, we both use the same. She has a cell phone, I have an iPhone. We use the same provider. Some people don't. So there's two providers. Some more records, some more homework to find out who they are. If you have any real estate holdings outside of Brooksby, need a record of that. Insurance policies, and provide all of the details, please, for your personal representative. Remember, we're doing these records for two people, you and your personal representative. Put that in the back of your mind, please. You want, if you have signed up for the ride, remember you have a little amount of money in that account, the ride has to be notified. You're no longer going to be using their services. And the Department of Motor Vehicles Easy Pass account information. And quite frankly, I don't know. Do you have to send the Easy Pass thing that sticks to your windshield? Do you have to send that back? I assume so. I've never had the opportunity yet. Who's your investment counselor? How can folks get in touch with him or her? And then there's all kinds of vendor cards, some of which are important, some are not. I'm not in a position to determine what's important, so I just threw a couple out there just for the heck of it. But don't you touch my Dunkin' Donuts account. Don't do it. Don't even try. I am sincere when I say location, location, and location. If you spread this stuff hither, thither, and yon, you haven't heard that in a while, what good is it? I'll give you an example. Somebody came to me and said, we need to sell a car. And I've never handled any of the paperwork with the car. I'm clueless. Actually, two people have done this. Well, we could find the registration because that was in the car. That's where the registration belongs. Where is the title? The title should not be in your car. Because if a bad guy steals your car with the title in it and is smart enough to be able to illegally change his identity, he owns that car. Well, we found out after a year of searching that it was in the first page of a book on the shelf that the late dearly departed had been reading at the moment of his passing. You have no idea the aggravation to get title to that car. So, please make that available. Some of the things you need to find out. The keys. Where are the keys? Who has the keys? The apartment exterior door key, the mailbox key, the car keys, and then some of you, in a more upscale fashion, have cars with electronic buttons on the door to get in and out. Anybody here have those? Show of hands. You have one? Okay. Do they work in an ice storm with heavy gloves on? I have a little button I can push. That works. Your Brooksby resident badge. Do you have any off-campus properties that you own? That should be made available. How about special collections? And we look around this campus and we have some of the most beautiful, attractive, creative collections. I'm very impressed with that. Ought to be some documentation about that. Locate pieces of jewelry, timepieces, collections, memorabilia, yes, but some of that isn't worth much. Some of it is. Segregate, identify for your personal representative what's good and what he or she can get rid of. Please, in your files, a single document that contains all of your passcodes, and it has to be updated and kept current. I say it's critical, and I mean it, because if you are no longer able to use your computer and your personal representative has to access information therein, needs the list of passcodes. Please prevent these from inadvertent disclosure. And they must be current. And if there are old passwords that have never been used, get rid of them. Social Security needs to be notified in the event of your demise. Usually, but not always, that's done by the funeral director. I have been told to request a minimum of 6 copies of the death certificate. And maybe more, I'm hearing. Okay, but I'm just passing on secondhand information. Those of us who retired from the government, there's how you get in touch with the Office of Personnel Management. You need an update of all your annuity data. That will be in your income tax files, I hope, and major employer records. Motor vehicles. Told you a couple of horror stories about that. The model, make, the year, and the VIN, the vehicle identification number. That's located in 2 places. One is on your dashboard on the car. Rather conspicuous on new cars. Wasn't so conspicuous years ago. And it's on the driver's side behind the steering wheel. It is also on the title. So you already have it in your apartment. Now, if you can only find the title, you're all set. What's your parking space number? You know it, I hope. Will your personal representative know that? Your license plate number. If you put a gun to my head right now, I could not tell you my license number. And I don't care to learn. I have far too much trivia stored away, totally inaccessible. I don't need more. We talked about the title, the registration, insurance information. That should be in your car. And warranty information. If it's a newer car, it's kind of easy. It's still on factory warranty. I had to buy an extended warranty. That should be in the car as well, in the glove compartment. I have a Brooksby Village transponder. That's the device that opens the gate whenever I want to get in here or out. And I mentioned before the DMV Easy Pass transponder and the relevant account information. And we're coming to the end of this race. Last but not least, make sure that your personal representative has ready access to all of the important information. Please. Discuss it, show it. I have access to my son's information, and he has access to mine. And from time to time, he will come and inspect my files. Now, we're at that stage where he is the father and I am the son. But he still respects me. He will not criticize me. I get one of these, it's all right. If he wants to play that game, that's fine with me. If he wants to pick up the tab for dinner, that's good, I like that. If he wants to drive me around at night, that's even better. So we do that. He has access, I have access to his. Remember, your personal representative needs to file an income tax return for the year that you die. They must notify the insurance carriers, file claims, cancel policies. Oh, they're going to love you. They're just going to love you. This is kind of a full-time job for them. Notify the banks, credit unions, credit card carriers. Notify the postal service. Cancel needless magazine and newspaper subscriptions, so on and so forth. I've come to the end of my tale to this extent. This is a daunting task. I am not saying it's easy. You're not going to do it on a dark, cold Sunday afternoon. If you do not have access to a computer, it's going to be a little bit more difficult or stimulating, as the case may be. So I have some recommendations, and I solicit from you as well. Buddy up. You don't have to do all this yourself. You can have some friends to help you. Start a club. Some people around here play mahjong. I say, start a new club called My Files. You think I'm kidding? Wait till you see how much work is involved in this. But it's necessary. If you do have any suggestions, please let us know. Share it. Now, I do want to thank a number of people. I've already thanked 2, 3, but some more. I want to thank Carol Bortman for stimulating Don't Be Scared, Be Prepared concept. She shared with me very early on, and we've had a number of people helping us put this package together. Reverend Chad Kidd, he came up with the title for it, Don't Be Scared, Be Prepared, in every member of Pastoral Ministries. They've all been superb in helping us out. And the resident representatives, they've been helping us out as well. And I cannot overlook Barbara Lee, who helped me put together this PowerPoint demonstration today. If you have any questions, I am prepared to at least dodge as many as I can at this time. Way across the room. Do we have a mic?
We have 2 mics.
2 mics. The reason we need a mic, you'll never be heard on television.
While they're getting over there, I would like to say that along with your online stuff, cars are now online. I haven't figured ours out yet, but we have mysubaru.com, which collects all sorts of information about our car, us, our address, you name it. And along with that, we have something called Starlink that connects us to emergency response services, so they collect more information on you. Very interesting. I would like to thank Bob for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Next month, we're doing medical choices, which was my area to coordinate, and I hope I can provide it through our speakers, who are Caroline Sims, who's a licensed social worker in the medical center, taking over for Melanie, who was going to do it, and Dr. Acker, and I hope we can present it as enthusiastically and come up with some jokes that even halfway meet Bob's. It was a good session. He got some funny laughs in it. It was very good. So come back next month too. But questions on tonight?
One quick one. One of the places that should be notified too on death is the VA.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Veterans Administration. Whatever we were talking about with Office of Personnel Management, same holds for the Veterans Administration. Thank you.
Just to,
I will.
what's your recommendation? Like, could this be an online file, or do you suggest that it is good to have a hard copy of something that you can hand to your personal representative?
Absolutely both.
Okay.
Both. Because there is a feature on many of the computer systems where you can invoke a command called share. So if you have it in your computer and you hit share, you can share it with your personal representative. So as you update it, it updates his or her files as well.
How do you dispose of the transducer that goes with the DMV from the car?
That was my
say
question.
We don't own it. Who gets it?
That was my question earlier. I assume you bring it down to a local DMV office.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
We need a mic over here.
Bob,
Where are you? Oh, okay.
couple of quickie items. On the VA, people should contact, if somebody is a veteran, should contact the Veteran Service Officer in Peabody, because funeral expenses will be paid by the VA if you use the VA facilities. So it's a significant financial support object. And there is a Veteran Service Officer at the City Hall in Peabody.
Thank you, sir.
Also, on the form that we fill out, designating our personal representative to can have access for Brooksby Village, I'd like to ask if the RAC would consider having Brooksby Village expand that form so that we can give to our personal representative an instruction sheet that tells how to clear the apartment, apply for the deposits, and the full process in the relationship with Brooksby Village.
That is the move-out handbook. Yes. And you will be talking to someone in Mike Francis' office, the finance office. And they will help your personal representative traverse that very difficult course.
We will get to your questions. We have a good half hour, so keep raising your hands. We will get to all of you that have questions, I'm pretty sure.
It's right over here. Okay. Yes.
I moved here from another from another state. It was very easy to contact the state of Illinois. They returned all my money that I had still left on my transponder, and the transponder can be dropped off at any toll booth. Now, I don't know if you can actually take it to your grocery store, wherever you bought it from, but they just give you the $10 back, because you own it, but really you don't. It's only $10.
True. But of course, we don't have many toll booths anymore, and I don't see the ability to drop it off at 60 miles an hour.
Bob, I'd like to make one suggestion as far as keeping things that you really want to keep out of the hands of the bad guys.
Yeah.
I keep my IDs and my passwords on a flash drive, which I do not have attached to my computer except when I want to know that data. Mm-hmm. If you put that data on your laptop or on your hard drive or whatever, the bad guys may have access to your computer somehow.
True.
But if you put it on a flash drive and your flash drive is not attached to your computer, they have no access to that.
That's right.
So I would suggest that that's an alternate way of keeping passwords and IDs out of the hands of the bad guys as well. You can also produce a paper copy very easily by just printing it out from that hard drive.
Good point. And you just, sir, reminded me of something that I should have mentioned earlier, and of course, I forgot. Two things. If you do not have a copy of the handout for today, they will be made available in the Pastoral Ministries office directly above our head. Please fill out the evaluation form, and something that should be in your files that I neglected to mention because we published the hard copy before I put it on the system, and that is your medical records. Every time you go to a doctor's office, they want to know what are your meds, who are your doctors, what are your symptoms, and all that. I strongly recommend that you carry in your wallet all your meds, dosage, what time of the day you take them, and for what reason. Now, the doctor doesn't need to know for what reason. He or she already does. You do. So on one side of the page is if you're married or have a significant other. On one side of the page, all your medical stuff, including the doctors, telephone numbers, and so forth, specialties. On the other side is your spouse or partner or what have you. In your wallet, number one. Number two, we moved here about 8 years ago. We were never told that we should put a copy of our meds on the file for life that is stuck to your refrigerator. Now, I don't want to embarrass you, but how many people have their meds, medications, in that file for life right now? How did you know? I'll tell you how I knew. The men's group invited the manager for the biggest ambulance company in the North Shore. And he said, when that ambulance crew goes into your apartment, they, like a laser, go for that file of life, and they're looking for two things. Do you have a do not resuscitate in there? And do you have your med list in there? And I said, why? And then it made sense. I understand now that folks who are moving into Brooksby are advised by sales to do that. Well, I'm recommending everybody do it. Okay, back to questions. Yes. No,
Continuing. Okay.
Go ahead. With the mic.
Continuing with the what was called passcodes, I like to refer to as passwords. Two things. First, critical files you want to protect, you can protect with a special password, particularly spreadsheet files, where I do have financial and other kinds of information. I could protect it with a password using the Excel as an example of a spreadsheet, so that casual people cannot get access to those particular files. But more importantly, when you have a situation where you literally have 20 or 40 or 60 different codes for Costco or your insurance company or your credit card companies or your banks or your broker, to avoid having to memorize all of those, there's a thing called a password manager. What you do is the password manager, and typically they'll cost a little bit of money, you can put all of your passcodes on there. And the critical thing is you have to have entry to that passcode manager. Here you want to provide a very secure password, 12 characters or more, to protect the most vital part of your information system. And even then, since I've only used it perhaps a year or so, I'm a little leery on my most critical information, my brokerage information, my credit card information. Those few passwords I remember in my head. I don't rely on my passcode manager. Now, how did I get the one I use. There are many of them. I asked my son-in-law. My son-in-law works for a crypto security company. That company happens to use what I ultimately acquired. But there are many others, and I strongly suggest looking into it to protect your vital information that you may have on a computer.
Thank you very much. Good idea. This young lady over here has been waiting so patiently.
On
Ken?
on the transporters, there's a state office at Square One Mall in Saugus on the second floor near Macy's. It's only open 3 days a week, I believe, during the week, not on the weekends. And for all your words, I think there's a free company called Key Pass.
The hand up.
People that want the mic.
No, no,
She's
no.
already had the mic.
With the pink sweater or whatever that is.
About her. She's already had a question asked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to try to have somebody
Got
else
it.
have the opportunity to answer some questions.
I'm sorry.
Fine. Barbara's got it. We'll come next over here.
Two questions, and I've forgotten what it was called, but there was a booklet or
A handout?
when you exit.
Yes.
When what was it called?
Handbook.
No, a handbook that was
There were-
given at the exit.
It's printed in your handout. It's in your handout.
When do we get that? Is that in the handout? When is
You have
that
to go
available?
and, you have to go and request it
Into the administration office out here.
But you can do that
anytime.
anytime. Thank you. And the other is you mentioned getting groups together to help you go through that. I was wondering if your son was available for that.
At a fee.
Number one, it's been brought to my attention he should charge. Number two, you would not like it.
Bob, you mentioned a list of medications.
Yes.
Okay, just to add to that, a lot of people have this automatic refill at their pharmacist. That might be something you might want to add to cancel too.
Sure. Why not?
It's considered like a subscription, and there again, going back to Starlink on our new car, they're subscriptions if we want to extend stuff, so.
Who hasn't had a chance to ask a question?
We have half an hour, people, so we're open to more questions.
All right. A few years ago, when my wife passed away, I thought I had handed out all the death certificates and notified everybody that she had died. I missed one, and that was she was a dependent on my VA disability. Nobody caught it. And suddenly, a few years later, the Social Security Administration had notified the VA, and they came to me, and I owed some money. I owed about $3,000 from back payments that I should have been not yet aware of because she was no longer a dependent.
The same is true for Social Security.
Yeah.
And it need not be your spouse. It can be dependent children, for example. And there's some legal situations in there, but please make sure somebody talks to them upon your demise. Sir.
This is not a question, but a point of information. This lecture will be on the brooksbytv.org, I think it is, and you can go into that, check the menu, and you'll find you can see this on your own computer at your own schedule. You don't have to go to channel 919.
Correct. Anyone, anywhere in the world can do that.
That's
This,
right.
this program today should be up and running within a week or two.
Other questions? Back in the back row. Back row.
It's not a question. I'm just passing along some information about a horror story that I went through a few years ago. Oh, okay. It's a good idea to have a will. If you just want to slide through and get a, not do anything and die intestate, it can make it a horror story, really, for your personal, what was it, personal representative. I ended up with 40 heirs, and it was really very difficult. I learned a lot. My best help was my CPA, and finally got through it, but I would really advise having a will.
Thank you.
I was wondering
No.
if the man, I was wondering if the man that gave some information about calling the veterans, the Peabody veterans.
Hold your mic up, please.
Oh dear. I was wondering if the man that gave some information about the Peabody veterans had a little more information or could tell me a little bit more about that. There was a gentleman that mentioned that.
I think it was Sandy.
Now, hold on one sec. Would you stand up and let her see you? Would you do that for me, please?
No, you're going to talk.
No, no.
Okay.
Speaking on the veterans issue. There he is. See him back there?
Oh, Sandy, okay. Sandy, over there. To your left. Well, get the mic, Sandy.
The city of Peabody has a Veterans Services Officer. VSO is what it's referred to. Go to the city. I do have, if you want to see me afterwards, I do have a copy of his card with a phone number on it. But that is, again, if somebody is a veteran, if you pre-arrange for a veteran's funeral, it's mostly is covered, and you can save a considerable amount of money.
Okay, a question I have, a lot of people lease cars. Now, does that create a problem if you have leased a car on, say, a 3-year lease?
In answer to your question, that's why God made an attorney. I'm not being sarcastic. As I said earlier, I am not one.
I think you got the wrong creators for attorneys.
You're bad.
Any other questions?
I want to thank you so very much for coming out on a cold day. By the way, the place seems a little bit warmer. Thank you for your warmth. Thank you.